Hello everyone, welcome. So I'm going to make this as efficient as possible as I do with all of my courses. If you're a student or client of mine, you know this, but there's kind of a lot to cover. And I want to start with the difference between overt versus covert narcissism. So most of you guys know the definition of narcissism. That's probably why you're here. And that is typically the overt narcissist, so the one that's charismatic and very grandiose and sucks the air out of the room, and the Donald Trumps, the huge personalities that often, some of them have a lot of power and some of them don't, but they definitely get a hold of our psyche and emotions, and those are the ones that are easy to spot. And then there's the covert narcissist, and they often come off like they're the consummate victim, so they come off kind of almost delicate or just demure and unassuming. And I think that covert narcissists are a little bit more dangerous because of this. You often, when I've dated them, I'm like, oh, poor guy, and they're just so whatever their story is, and it's usually they're the victim because their ex-wife or someone did them wrong, and so that's kind of like how they present. They present with their shame and vulnerability. Whereas the covert narcissist, you don't see their shame and vulnerability until you see that other side of them that's not confident and charismatic. So they both have the underlying things. They both will gaslight you. They both do all the phases, the love bombing, the discarding, the hovering. They do all of the devaluing. They do all of those phases, and all of the same tactics underneath, but it just presents in different ways. So the overt is very grandiose at first, and then the shame is underneath, and then the covert kind of uses it. It's more manipulative to me because they use their shame to kind of manipulate people. So you feel sorry for them, you want to take care of them, and then they want you to take care of them and then resent you for taking care of them. And that's part of where when they start to discard, they'll start to do that because you're not taking care of them correctly, or they don't want you to take care of them, but you do. So there's a lot of that in there. And then with the covert narcissist, their grandiosity is underneath. So they have you'll start to, as you get closer to them and learn more about them, they'll start to talk about how amazing they are, or they should have had this opportunity, or they're so great and no one notices their greatness. And a lot of grandiose things like that come out underneath. But with both of them, the closer and more intimate you get to them, the more that they push you away and all those malignant behaviors start coming out. And both covert and overt narcissists have avoidant attachment styles, which is typically, sometimes it'll come off as anxious avoidant at first, especially in the love bombing phase or the idealization phase, where they're like, oh, I can't live without you, you're amazing. And it comes off like they're almost anxiously attached at first when they're really trying to pull you in and make you feel special. But they typically have a predominantly avoidant attachment style, which means they can't get too close. They will do something to sabotage it. And it's this underlying conscious or unconscious, subconscious belief that if someone got to know who they really are, they would be shamed, or that person would be disgusted or reject them in some kind of way. And narcissists are very, very afraid of abandonment and will do anything to avoid it at all costs. So they'll reject you first and then quickly replace you, so they never have to, they'll still feel the abandonment, but they're always trying to cope with something else or a substance or both. So again, the relationship style is the same. The 4 stages of dealing with a narcissist, whether it's romantically, at work, in a family situation, are idealization, that love bombing phase. Everything's great, you're amazing, I'm doing all these things for you, making you feel great, and you feel on top of the world and like it's never gonna end. In the meantime, the narcissist is getting inventory to know your vulnerabilities, what makes you tick, what are you most insecure about, which goes into the devaluing phase. So in this phase, they're not as enthusiastic all of a sudden. They start to get grouchy or grumpy, and then you'll do something to try to fix it, and they're just backing off a little bit more. And then they'll come in, and then they'll back off more, and here's where the avoidant thing starts, and then you might get upset, so you back away, so they get a little closer because they need to be the one to reject you. But they'll start just picking at you, just like little things like, And some of it doesn't even have to be rooted in reality. They'll just make things up. They can do that too. But just anything like you don't fold your laundry properly, or you don't do something the way they would. Or the worst is when they start picking at something that they used to admire about you. So maybe the way you talk or told a joke, all of a sudden they don't like that at all. Maybe they really admired what you did for work and now they're putting it down. It's very confusing and unsettling. So then we have the discarding phase, and here they're building up a case in their mind for all the devaluing they've done, and now they're going to reject you. And it's typically something that you don't break up with someone over, you don't fire someone over, you don't cause a fight with someone over, but they've built all of that up. After putting you on a pedestal, they're pulling you down, and it's really hard on your nervous system, and you're confused and distraught. So after all this oxytocin and serotonin is built up in your body, they take it away, and all of a sudden you're flooded with these stress hormones. You feel abandoned, and that is exactly what they're afraid of feeling, so they make you feel that way through the discarding phase. So it's very abrupt, you feel horrible and traumatized and very confused, and because your nervous system was so attached to this other person, you have this biochemical kind of addiction going, and then you're in a place where you would do anything to just get them back. You're not even thinking logically about how this person hurt you and how terrible they're being. Your nervous system is just like, I want more of that good feeling, and I will do anything to get it back. And the narcissist loves this. They thrive off of this. They actually love when other people are in pain. So they want this cycle. And the more that you give in that way, the more that they're liking it, because you're in pain and because of their deep-seated abandonment issues. When someone's like, please, 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 it makes them feel like they're loved and not being abandoned, which is obviously like a false sense of that. It's not how you get true love and acceptance. And then finally, in the hoovering phase, you start to cool down, you start to heal, you start to move on, and they start hoovering, which means that they stalk you, and not just regular, like checking on your social media. They will go really deep and incessantly look at your things, social media, anything that they can, hiring private investigators, things that could get really out of hand because they're obsessively trying to get your attention again. They'll reach out to you, they'll start sprinkling all of these things in like what I like to call like breadcrumbing, because they want you to make a feast out of the crumbs that they're giving you. And especially in the discarding phase, the attempting to make a feast out of crumbs is a pattern you could get into, but they start to do that again, or they might do a really big gesture, like back into the idealization, love bombing phase, and your body misses that. Your nervous system is like, oh my God, I was just getting over that, but I want more of that. That made me feel so good and loved and accepted. So in the hoovering phase, they're trying to reel you back in, basically, and there goes the cycle all over again. So my clients come to me and they're like, why can't I get over this? I feel like I'm addicted to this person. I logically know that I need to move on. All of my friends are telling me that, and all of those things are true, right? We all know that it's not good to be in abusive relationships or be around toxic people, but literally what happens, that idealization phase is so powerful, and you get this surge of oxytocin that bonds you. I've had clients tell me, oh my God, we just had this like amazing like bonding experience where I really felt like they understood me and we have this like spiritual connection, and it can feel like that, like, oh, my twin flame and all of those things. But what they were doing is during the idealization phase, they were knowing where your soft spots are. They were getting acquainted with them, and then they put their hooks in there, and you really did feel it. And it's different for everyone, but they know how to do this on like a very conscious and subconscious level. So they will hook into that, and then you feel very connected to them in this way that you've never felt before. And so that is what's going on, and these surge of hormones are creating neural pathways that are like, bond to this person, bond to this person. This is amazing. And so we don't want that to go away. And yes, it's every relationship, you need to have arguments. You need to like arguments and having disagreements deepen intimacy. It's that repair, and being able to talk on a vulnerable level helps deepen the intimacy. But with narcissists, during the discarding phase, or where they need to create distance, when they do that, there's no accountability for their behavior. So they're just kind of like, okay, well, let's move on. And you're so wanting that hit again that you are willing to, at the time, overlook what happened or not get an apology or convince yourself that that's a one-time thing and it won't happen again, even though it's a perpetual cycle. But that's why I'm saying don't be hard on yourself, because you are literally addicted on a biochemical level. And yes, your brain is so malleable and your nervous system is so malleable. So it is possible to rewire your nervous system and rewire your mind to cleanse yourself of this and not attract it again, because there's no point in getting over a relationship like this to continue to attract it at work or a family member or another romantic relationship or a cycle that you have with your kids or whatever. You don't want to keep it going. So you have to heal it on a very fundamental, foundational level. And then these behavior patterns in these relational cycles will discontinue. So it really is like an addiction. And they've done studies on monkeys where they give one group. So this really is like an addiction, and they've done studies on monkeys where they give monkeys, one group, just constant attention in a good way, and they get kind of used to it, and they don't have these big spikes in dopamine and serotonin. And then another group they gave intermittent affection to, and those monkeys had like a cocaine-like response to the affection because they weren't getting it on a regular basis. So when a narcissist is breadcrumbing you, it's that same thing. So when you are making a feast out of crumbs and getting a little bit for them, and they're giving you that hit like you had in the idealization phase, literally you're getting that surge like a cocaine addict. So this is a very real thing. So I have heard some people that talk about narcissism online say, oh, it's not like it's an actual biochemical addiction that's going on. I think a lot of people overlook that, but it's a real thing. So be gentle with yourself and know that you are able to fix it. And not only fix it, but recover and thrive. And I talk about recovery more than healing, because when you're dealing with a narcissist, you literally have to abandon yourself. Sometimes we attract a narcissist because we fear abandonment, and in that idealization phase, they give us so much love and attention that we never think will go away, and that's what we get addicted to. But when during the whole cycle of being with a narcissist, we end up abandoning ourselves. We abandon our needs. We suppress what we're actually thinking and feeling in order to not be abandoned by the narcissist. So after a while, you start to completely dissociate and lose touch with yourself. And so that's why when I'm talking about healing from a narcissist, it's about recovering yourself. That's why I call it recovery. You're recovering yourself and getting to know yourself again, and like really shining, receiving all that life has to offer you, and thriving. And some of you might be familiar with trauma bonding. So the cycle of abuse from the narcissist, the idealization, devaluation, discarding, and hovering, that creates a trauma bond. And so that's what people talk about when they're talking about the trauma bond, and we try to find that again and again until we can break that cycle. And within the trauma bond, there are 4 types of responses: fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So fight is that fighting, which we tend to not do. We might try it a little bit with a narcissist, then we back off. Freeze is freezing. You're scared, or you go into a depressed state, you sleep too much. All of those depressive symptoms are the freeze, or just silencing yourself completely. I think we all have had those moments where we just kind of shut down with a narcissist. And then the flight is just to leave, to take off, or literally dissociate. Some people just completely dissociate from their body. This can also come in the form of numbing out behaviors, watching TV, video games, overeating, undereating, all of those numbing out behaviors to dissociate. That happen, especially if you're living with a narcissist. A lot of people that aren't, in other walks of life that they've experienced, they don't have a problem with alcohol or other numbing behaviors until they get in a relationship with a narcissist. So that could happen. And then the fawning is really common. So, and I can tell you from my own experience, that would be my go-to, because they love attention. So I'm like, okay, well, let me just admire them and say this, and oh my gosh. And it works to an extent, but then it feels very soul draining. But those are, when a trauma bond happens, those are some of the things, survival mechanisms that our nervous system could default into. And when I work with clients, and in my full course that you can read more about below, and here we'll talk briefly about some of the techniques you can do to dismantle those behaviors, because those are default settings that are survival settings that we don't have to operate from. And maybe at one point in your life those worked for you, And especially when you're a child, that's where they usually get learned. Like the freeze is like maybe you went under your covers or in the closet or under your bed. And in adult life, it looks a little bit different. It looks like depressive symptoms, like I just said. So they are survival behaviors that we learned when we were more defenseless, but we have so many other options now for rewiring our nervous system, not attracting these type of people ever again. And that is what we're going to get into next. So I love talking about the neuroscience behind recovering from anything, but especially narcissistic abuse. I'm not going to get too into it right now, but it is important for you to know. And I can, if you want to talk about it on the side, and I will definitely talk about it more in my full course. But it is important to know that your hippocampus actually shrinks. This is like the executive functioning part of your brain. And this is why, your friends can't talk sense into you, can't talk sense into yourself. You're doing behaviors, trying to get them back that just don't make sense, because it starts to shrink and you're in that more reactive part of your brain where you just want those good feeling hormones again. So from there, I have a 5-step system to like dismantling the denial and eventually rewiring the brain, creating new neural pathways, resetting your nervous system, and then getting a place to recover yourself. You get to know yourself again and what you really want and who you are, and having the courage to live from that space and thriving. So one of the most important techniques that I'm going to present to you now, and I'm not going to go into all of it, but just the basics right now. And whenever I start working with a client, and anytime I do a new course, this is one of the most fundamental things I go over, which is breathing techniques. 1, we have to breathe. 2, it is an amazing way to reset your nervous system, regulate your nervous system, and bring down all of those cortisol, all those stress hormones that are constantly pumping through your body when you're dealing with a narcissist. And by the way, it's free. I always say this because I'm passionate about it. It's something that the pharmaceutical industry doesn't want you to know. They'd rather have you take a Xanax and all this stuff, but and I'm not putting that down. I think that those can be okay short-term interventions, but you have to breathe. It's free. And so I think that it's really important to learn these techniques, especially when you're in the midst of something, or that terrible feeling where you feel like something is coming, when the narcissist is in one of the phases of that cycle. So I'm going to go over box breathing first, because it's just a really great, like the Navy SEALs use it. It's a really good one for regulating and like down regulating stress hormones. So what you're going to do is take an inhale, and you're going to take 4 to 5 second inhale in, hold for 4 or 5 seconds, exhale out 4 or 5 seconds, and then inhale in. And so everything is 4 to 5 seconds, and you imagine a box when you're doing it. And so just doing that, it's so simple, I know, but it completely regulates your nervous system. And then another one is, as you're inhaling, hold, and then try to hold in something that you want more of, or bring in something you want more of: love, peace, calm, self-love. And then you exhale out anything that isn't serving you. And then you do that 3 times. And then on the 3rd time, or after that, you take in 3 sharp breaths. And then when you think you can't take in any more breath, you take in another big breath and hold. And so you're literally expanding your lungs, which brings, again, the cortisol levels down, and it actually helps clear out a lot of toxins in your lungs and bloodstream. And then you're going to take a long exhale out. And then when you think you can't exhale it anymore, and then you push out more. And you want to do that 2 to 3 times. And another one I like to do is lion's breath. And this is something you might want to do in the car or when someone's not around. But it's a yoga breathing technique that Tony Robbins has taken. A lot of people have adapted into their own practices. And it's really good because you're relieving a lot of stress, and then you have to open your jaw really wide and stick out your tongue. And when you do that, well, a lot of us hold a lot of tension in our jaw. So you're doing that, and then sticking out your tongue actually regulates the vagus nerve. And when the vagus nerve is regulated, our organs, everything gets regulated, and our nervous system calms down. So here's what it looks like. Big deep breath in. And you stick your tongue and bring it out. Inhale. So you're going to do that as many times as you like. And it's okay if you laugh or it feels awkward, but you will feel a deep sense of relief when you do this. Now, another technique we're going to get into is journaling, but journaling in a very specific way. So To start, I always tell people that actually, when they're at this point, and it's honestly sometimes the lowest point of their lives when they're recovering from a narcissistic relationship, they're very dysregulated. And I always say this could be a blessing. This could be one of the best things that's ever happened to you, because people like this, they make you hit rock bottom in a way where if you are willing to do the work and you're willing to heal, which isn't a lot, it doesn't have to be all this work, but if you're ready to be like, okay, this is it and I'm ready to change my life, recovering from this type of toxic relationship can literally jettison you into another dimension of health, wealth, like amazing relationships and career opportunities that you never thought possible. It could literally propel you into another dimension, and I've seen so many people, I've done it myself, I've helped so many clients do this, so I know it's available to you. And so here are some journal prompts that could start that process. So the first one is, what did this relationship provide me in the beginning, during the idealization phase? What were you being provided? What were the feelings? What do you feel, even though it's not true, but you felt like maybe we're lacking? Or what were you seeking from this relationship during the idealization phase? And how did it make you feel? So some of these could be unconditional love, lots of gifts. Actually, covert narcissists, this is another thing they love to do, is give gifts. They're like over the top generous. Overt narcissists, not as much. They're just like, I'm amazing, I am the gift. But covert narcissists, they come off so generous and so nice. And then one of the things is like, oh my God, this gift, and now I'm indebted to them. So they're wanting to do that with gifts, and it makes you feel special. So was it this feeling of specialness, or just feeling like someone was never, what is it? And then the second part of that is to look back. And before I say this, I always tell my students and clients, we're never trying to relive something, we're trying to release. It's never about reliving, it's about releasing. That's why I don't practice traditional therapy anymore, where someone comes in and just talks about the past and kind of basically whines about it without any actionable things. So we're not doing that, but you're looking to your past for clues, like you're an archaeologist or like you're a detective. So you're just piecing things together in order to resolve the problem. So what are situations, and you could like look back in your childhood where you got some message or some programming that you weren't lovable, or that you had to be this way to get the type of love that you wanted, or you had to be this way to not get abandoned or ridiculed. And just write it down. Just like you're a scientist or a detective, you're just taking notes and writing it down. And really take your time, really go deep. And then from there, the third question is, how can I provide these things for myself here today? And if you do have any type of spiritual orientation where you're connected to God or a power greater than yourself, this is a great time to open up to that power greater than yourself, or if you call it God, whatever universe, whatever it is, because that is a source. I call God often like source. So source is always providing for me. So how can I open up and receive that from source, so I don't make a narcissist my higher power, or God, like unconsciously. I was unconsciously doing that a lot until my coach had to point that out to me. Like, you are making these narcissists your God or your higher power, like they are the answers, or if they're off, then you're off. And it's like, no, there wasn't any type of personal autonomy. It's like, okay, I'm okay if you're okay type of thing. That's giving your power away to someone. I didn't know I was doing that. So in order to take back your power, how can you provide these things for yourself through adaptive behaviors, maybe through friends, through your higher power, your relationship with universe, or how you perceive energy or work with things on an energetic and spiritual level. And the third technique I'm going to go over with you is meditating. And when I'm working with clients, and in my full course that you could read about below, I really get deep into the meditating, and I go over a lot of them because they're so helpful. It is such a fast way to rewire the brain for anything that you want. And a lot of people are intimidated by it. I can't sit still for that long. You don't have to. There's walking meditations, there's seated ones that you could do for 3 to 5 minutes, but even in those 3 to 5 minutes, it's so powerful. You could do them while you're walking on the treadmill. There is so many, so it's not this whole thing where I have to get into this perfect state. All you're doing is turning down the noise. It's just a way to turn down the noise. And once you build that muscle, you'll be able to turn down the noise just like you would on a dimmer switch. So I'm just going to go over this one really quickly. You want to start with the deep breathing, just in and out, exhaling out any frustration, anything, worry, anything that is causing you fear, anxiety, or just not good feelings. And then what you're going to do is put your hands over your heart. So you're doing this because putting your hands over your heart actually releases oxytocin and serotonin, that chemical that we get from the idealization phase. We're creating that for ourselves, within ourselves. So you just want to breathe in and out. And you could close your eyes if you want to, or you could try to not have your eyes dart around too many places. You want to set them in one place or close your eyes. And you're going to get distracted. Things are going to flutter into your mind. That's okay. Just exhale them out, exhale them away, and continue to do that. And you can do that for 3 to 5 minutes. And then if you want to add things to it, inhale in what you want more of, exhale out. You could add a mantra in there. You're just retraining the brain to be in a calm state. When you are dealing with a narcissist, you're constantly waiting for a shoe to drop, feeling dysregulated. So this is a way to regulate yourself very quickly. And if you don't like sitting still, you can also do this while you're walking. You don't even have to put your hands on your heart. You could imagine hands on your heart, looking at nature while you're walking your dog, doing whatever. And you could imagine some kind of white, bright light or whatever nice, pleasant color that represents a feeling of love and calm and peace to you, coming down and just penetrating every part of your body. And then anything that doesn't feel good, fear, anything like that, just gets washed down into the earth. The earth knows how to turn things into, knows how to turn manure into fertilizer for the plants and make things grow. So you don't even have to worry about that, but just you want to energetically cleanse yourself and regulate your nervous system. There are so many more things that I go over. I go over EFT, tapping, NLP. There's so many different neurological techniques, and NLP is a really important one because it's neuro-linguistic programming, and we are talking all the time. We think in words, so that's a really important one that I incorporate into the full course, and that is a very important one that I incorporate throughout the full course, and that I'm always going over with my students and clients. And so for this last phase, when we are thriving, this is when we are getting really real with ourselves. Okay, so our nervous system is regulated. We can see clearly where we have abandoned ourselves and our needs. And now it's time to recover that. So it's asking yourself, who am I? What do I want to do? And how, if I need the courage to do that, how? And so we go over that intensely in the full course because it is that courage to change. And a lot of us know that we want a certain change, but it's like, how do I do that? How do I get the courage? And this is part of my addiction to narcissists. I dated a lot of ones that had just done so many amazing things in the world, and I want to do amazing things in the world, and I was drawn to them because of that, and I didn't think I had that within me. So we talk about that in the thriving, the last module of which is that's the most exciting part for me to watch. Like what I do for a living, I love watching people transform. I feel very honored to be part of their process, but it is just the most amazing and fun part for me to watch that evolution happen. So that's what's happening in this phase. We are talking about how to, now that we've reassembled and regulated our nervous system, we are going into the thriving phase and what that looks like. And it's so different for everyone else, but we are going to get you there where you are thriving and shining and receiving whatever it is that you want out of life. And I really believe that I get more into this and in private coaching and in the course that is about recovering from a narcissistic abuse, but you get to have whatever you want. And I know the narcissist and whatever program you have from childhood made you not believe that, but that is not true. You came, and whatever your desires that you have for yourself, they were put there because you're meant to have them. So this is that phase, and this is what I mean about a narcissist could be the best thing that's ever happened to you, because that it could just be like, you know what, I've had it. Like that rock bottom moment can accelerate you to places that you never thought possible. So that is what this phase is about. And we just continue to thrive and thrive and thrive and evolve. So no more surviving, we're into thriving. So thank you for watching this. If you have any questions, let me know. You can DM me at Mental Health Hacker. And below this video is a full description of everything that's in the course. I'm so excited to potentially coach you and watch you recover and thrive. Below is more about it, how to sign up. And if you sign up today, there is a discount, a $500 discount for you at checkout. All right, I cannot wait to meet you and work with you. I'll see you soon.